Hello everyone, and welcome to the very first episode of VaporCast. I'm your host, SamiVaporStudios, and this moment, me finally talking into the microphone while you're tuning in wherever you are, has been sitting in the back of my mind for years now. I actually planned to start this podcast all the way back in the year of 2020, but life, doubt, and endless delays kept getting in the way. I kept thinking, one day I'll do it, and now that day is finally here. I always imagined what this would essentially sound and feel like, a calm space where I can breathe, talk, and let my thoughts drift the same exact way that vaporwave music drifts through time. There are some light visuals here, the podcast logo that fades in at the very beginning of every episode, and during the actual podcast itself, the title appears beside it and the logo slowly rotates while the audio waves move up and down on the screen. But that's about it. There's nothing really flashy, there's nothing too overproduced, just a soft visual rhythm to match the flow of my voice. Beyond that, it's all about the words, the thoughts, and the sound. No edits, no tricks, just honesty. And essentially, that's the heart of VaporCast, honesty wrapped in chill energy. It's about slowing down enough to actually think. As you know, the internet moves so fast that people often forget what reflection feels like. Everything's instant. Instant likes, instant gratification, instant arguments, instant regret, and the same pattern of people following trends, trying to get that hit of extra dopamine. There's always this high demand of everything being instant. But a podcast like this forces things to slow down. You can't scroll through it, you can't skip to the comments, you just have to listen. I have the comments disabled anyway, so you have no choice but to listen. So, here's how this started. For years, I've made content under the online handle SamiVaporStudios. I've made animations, I've made animation commentary videos, and I've made memes, and whatever other strange ideas I wanted to bring to life, I did just that. But there's always been this itch to speak freely, to have something unfiltered. And in videos, I can usually cut mistakes out in post-production. I can also hide tired moments and polish every word. But here, if I trip up over a thought, it stays. Unless, if it's really bad and I start stuttering, then I'll usually cut it out. But most of the time, if my voice shakes a little bit, it stays. And that's what makes it real. I'll try to keep the edits minimal. And when I think back on everything that I've made over the years, I realize the common thread is reflection, even the funny stuff, even the satire. It's all rooted in looking back at life and asking, what did that actually mean? And that's the same exact question that built vaporwave as an art genre and as a music genre. People essentially took the leftovers of old culture, those corporate jingles, forgotten adverts, broken memories, and turned them into art. It's essentially nostalgia turned inside out, which I think is pretty cool. And I've always connected with that idea, recycling the past to understand the present. And that's kind of what this show is for me, personally. VaporCast is essentially me taking all the noise that I've lived through. Online drama, creative burnout, weird friendships, quiet nights staring at editing screens and turning it into something meaningful. Essentially, I'm finding what's known as the diamond in the rough, so to speak, of content creation, even though it is pretty common for many content creators to have a podcast series. But there is indeed a significant difference between my podcast and everyone else's. And you might be wondering, well, what's the difference between your podcast compared to everyone else's on the internet? And to answer that exact question is that what makes VaporCast so different from other podcasts online is that it isn't just built around guests or gimmicks or hype. It's built around stillness. Most podcasts tend to have a habit of chasing conversation speed, or they try to fill every silence with noise. This one does the exact opposite. It's not about arguing over headlines or chasing popular trends. It's about slowing down and actually thinking. Every episode is meant to feel like a late-night talk with yourself, or a moment where time softens for a bit and you can breathe between thoughts. In a world that is obsessed with hot takes and short attention spans, VaporCast is a quiet rebellion, a reminder that depth still matters. And what makes it special is the atmosphere. It's personal, but not performative. It's structured, but not exactly scripted to death. Obviously, I speak the way that I think, slowly and openly with a space for reflection, and even the visuals are indeed minimal by design, just like my logo rotating with the gentle pulse of the audio waves. Nothing more is needed. VaporCast is about presence, being here, now, together in sound. It's not trying to compete with the noise, it's trying to balance it. And maybe in the future, I may invite guests to talk about certain topics that they may be interested in. I haven't decided on that yet, so that is exactly why it's just going to be me talking for now in episode 1. But I'll think more down the line later on in relation to that. Now, there is a reason that this is called the beginning of VaporCast and not just episode 1. Beginnings are more than first steps. They're moments when you choose to start again even if you're tired. Over the past few years, I've had a lot of stop-and-go phases, times where I disappeared, times where I questioned whether any of it mattered. Starting this podcast is me saying it does matter. Speaking matters, connection matters. Now, before I dive into heavier stuff, let's talk about the energy that I want this show to carry. I imagine that you're probably listening while doing something simple. Maybe you're drawing a picture of something interesting. Maybe you're cooking a delicious meal. Or you're at the dinner table eating a meal. Maybe you're driving in your car. Maybe you're lying in bed staring at the ceiling at 1 a.m. wondering what the hell am I doing with my life. But just know that I want this podcast to feel like we're sharing that same exact quiet space. No pressure to agree with everything, no rush to judge, just me talking and you thinking alongside with me, just listening. And if you followed me online, if you've heard of me, you know that my style shifts between chill humor and blunt honesty. Now, that's not changing here. I'll still probably go off on tangents, and that's just how my brain works, but those tangents usually lead somewhere interesting. So let's start from the root, why vaporwave matters to me beyond the visual aesthetics. People often see it as an internet fad. Greek statues, pink sunsets, retro beats, but vaporwave at its core is a reaction to overload. It's what happens when the digital age gets too loud, and artists respond by slowing everything down. It's almost like it's a rebellion through the calmness, and that's why I love it. It's a protest that sounds like relaxation. And that particular philosophy blends perfectly with what I want VaporCast to be. A rebellion against noise, not by shouting louder, but by speaking slower. We live in a time where everyone's competing for attention. But the reality is that those always competing for attention end up being the ones that no one ever hears. Everyone's competing for attention, but hardly anyone's ever listening. So let this be a show about listening. And when I think about all the time I've spent online, it's honestly surreal. The digital world feels like a second home, but also like a haunted house. Every corner holds memories, some beautiful, some messy. Moments of freedom and excitement, moments of burnout and misunderstanding. And if you're a content creator, then you'd probably get that. You'd probably understand exactly what I mean. You know, it is thrilling to share what you make, but the feedback loop can mess with your head. And that's why I wanted a different space. A space where I can unpack things slowly, without the fear of clips, screenshots, or out of context takes. In a podcast, context stays intact. You can hear tone, pauses, and humanity. And that's the beauty of audio. It's intimate. And another reason that I basically started VaporCast is, well, because I love storytelling. It's not just about myself, but about culture in general. The internet constantly rewrites history, and I basically want to capture some of that in these talks, from the early meme days to modern chaos, from forums to TikTok trends, from collaboration to cancellation. Honestly, it's been a ride, but honestly, through it all, one thing that has stayed the same is that throughout all of that, people crave one thing, and that is authenticity. Even if they pretend that they don't, they do. They want something real to hold on to. And I remember when I first uploaded a video that got attention all those years ago. I was proud, nervous, all of it, the whole shebang. But I quickly realized that the internet rewards extremes. You either need to be outrageously funny or dramatically broken in order to stay visible, or relevant for that matter. Anything in between, calm, nuanced, balanced, often gets buried. And unfortunately, that's where most real human experience lives. That quiet middle space. So, basically, in this first part of VaporCast, I want to reclaim that middle space, the quiet place between noise and silence. The place where you can admit mistakes, laugh at yourself, talk about anxiety, and still feel hopeful. A lot of people think that being chill means being emotionless, being stoic. But that's not exactly true. Being chill can be powerful in itself. Chill means control. Chill means refusing to let chaos set your pace. Vaporwave taught me that. It takes something corporate and hollow, and then turns it into art by changing the tempo. And you can essentially do the same with your own life. You can slow it down, remix it, make meaning where there wasn't any to begin with. And when I listen to vaporwave music, I picture those late nights, lit by old monitors, forgotten shopping malls, faded dreams of a perfect future that never happened. It's strangely comforting in a way, and it reminds me that imperfection has its own kind of beauty. And that's what I want to pass on through this show. The idea that you don't need to be a flawless person, or even sound or look flawless in order to be worth listening to in the first place. There's something freeing about letting go of perfection. For a very, very long time, I was obsessed with it. How my voice sounded, how my videos looked, and how people perceived me. But being a perfectionist, having that grip on wanting to be perfect at everything, can actually be detrimental to your productivity. Perfection kills creativity. You start chasing approval instead of expression, and eventually you burn out just like a candle. And I did at one point. As a matter of fact, I did more than once over the years. But each burnout taught me something. It taught me that the rest is productive, that silence can actually be a useful tool, a powerful tool even, that sometimes doing nothing is the only way to move forward. You can't pour from an empty cup, but you can't create from a fried brain either. And that's why VaporCast isn't rushed. I'm not promising daily episodes or weekly episodes or even a strict schedule for that matter. What I'm promising in this podcast series is honesty. And that is something that you will rarely find from many other creators who have their own podcasts. I'm promising honesty, and whenever I am ready to release an episode, it'll be ready when it's ready. And beyond honesty, I want to explore growth, presence, and reclaiming joy, the things that make creating meaningful. Now, you might hear about the struggles, the triumphs, the quiet moments in between. We'll touch on the shorts, memes, unboxing, animation stuff, and maybe even some movie musings. The content is just a vessel. What matters is the connection, the reflection, the shared presence. And that's how I want to start this journey, with patience, with presence, and with purpose. If this podcast helps at least even one person to slow down and breathe, then it will be worth my time. It'll be worth it. You know, I've been thinking a lot lately about what growth really means. Not the flashy kind of growth where you gain followers overnight or you suddenly go viral, but the quiet kind of growth. And that kind just sneaks up on you after months of just showing up. Maybe that's where I'm at right now, growing slowly but surely. And at the time I'm recording this, the channel has reached around 420 subscribers or 422, which honestly still blows my mind. 420 people decided to hit that button and stay for the ride. And that's huge to me. Now, for a while, I had this plan where I'd wait until I'd hit either 500 subscribers, for example, or maybe even 1,000 subscribers before starting my podcast series, VaporCast. Like as if it had to be some kind of milestone event. But then it hit me. You only live once. And if I keep waiting for perfect, I'll be waiting forever. I realized that I'm already growing, already improving, and already connecting with people. So why not start now? Why not build as I grow instead of waiting for the finish line? You know, that's been my mindset lately. Just do it. Don't overthink it. Don't wait for permission. Because creativity doesn't need permission. It just needs momentum. And right now, I have been growing a lot through YouTube Shorts. Those quick little clips that have become such a fun way to experiment and reach new people and build a solid foundation that is an audience. And I've been making these AI dancing memes of my animated character. Just light-hearted, funny stuff. And it's wild how something so simple can catch people's attention. It's like I found a way to essentially blend humor, creativity, and vaporwave weirdness all in one. And the cool part, people actually respond to it. So they may not comment on the actual videos themselves, but the fact that they leave a lot of likes on the video, and the fact that it gets a lot of views and has a lot of shares is essentially more than enough proof to show that I am doing something right. And essentially that is the magic of YouTube Shorts. They remind me that connection doesn't always have to come from long-form videos or big projects. Sometimes it's just those little bite-sized moments where someone just smiles and goes, yeah, that's pretty cool. I like that. I want more of that. I want to see more dancing videos of Sammy and a bunch of other things related to that. Or maybe they like some of the unboxing videos that I've promoted through Shorts, because I do notice that those seem to do really well, along with my very first PS2 gaming haul video that I did. But obviously, I'm not just sticking to Shorts on their own. I am also diving deeper into the unboxing review videos, stuff like action figures, Lego sets, or just anything that grabs my curiosity. You know, I love that kind of content because it's fun, it's original, it's simple, and it's real. And there's something nostalgic about opening up a box, holding something physical, and of course, sharing that experience with an audience. It's like being a kid again at Christmas time, being full of wonder and just enjoying the moment without overthinking it. And sometimes I catch myself setting up the camera, opening up a brand new figure or a set, and then remembering why I started creating in the first place. And the reason is because it's fun. Not just because of views or likes or anything like that. And not because of social pressures or anything surrounding that. It's simply because I love sharing my creations. I love sharing that excitement. I love expressing myself creatively. And of course, I also do animations that aren't the best in the world, but I'm still evolving my craft. I also do animated commentary videos as well. And that part of my content isn't going anywhere. If anything, it's evolving. I'm blending it with other passions, making everything feel more like one cohesive universe instead of separate projects mashed into a random channel. And sometimes at face value, that can look like what the channel is. Like there's a bunch of different genres, different niches in a channel, and people sometimes can't figure out what it is. Well, for anyone confused about the type of content that I'll do, I have done videos explaining the type of content I've done. I might even make a new video explaining the type of content that I do. It'll just be like a short explainer video with my character. And maybe I'll do that sometime later on, either this month or next month. I haven't really decided yet because I'm juggling a lot of things in real life with this whole YouTube thing. And one thing that could help you get a rough understanding of what type of content I do is if you go to my main channel and then you look at the About section, it will list out all of the type of content that I do at this moment in time. And that should basically answer the potential confusion that you may have of me and the type of content that I do. But the point is that I'm still evolving my brand, my content and everything. And one project that I'm actually particularly excited for is a movie review of 28 Years Later. I've already seen the movie, and since I made an analysis of the trailer, it only feels right to do a follow-up video with a full review. And there's something about the series, 28 Days Later, 28 Weeks Later, and now 28 Years Later, that really resonates with me. Despite the fact that 28 Years Later is probably, if not the weakest out of the three in the trilogy. But still, the other movies do really resonate with me. It's dark, emotional, and layered. And I think it ties perfectly into the themes that I like exploring. Isolation, humanity, and how people change when everything around them collapses. I think when it comes to the way people are, and I think given the right circumstances, people will change when faced with difficult situations that are dark, that are emotional, that are layered. And I think given the right circumstances, a person can become very dangerous. But anyway, back to as I was saying about my content. Obviously, with the movie reviews, the animation stuff, the unboxing reviews showing my avatar, that's a direction that I want to take more often. Doing the occasional movie review sprinkled in between the unboxings and shorts, because honestly, my channel has always been about variety. I essentially like keeping things unpredictable. One day it's a meme, the next it's a commentary video, the next it's me talking about a film or reviewing a Lego set that I find interesting. And that mix keeps me motivated, keeps things fresh, but it also takes away different audiences that are from different niches. And that can sometimes be a blessing and a curse as well, because if you're doing a video on, let's say, reviewing a movie, for example, but then the next day you're posting memes on your channel, that can either confuse the algorithm in itself or it can confuse your own target audience. So I think I probably need to be a bit more transparent about what this channel is about in the future. And as I stated before, I will definitely do a video explaining the type of content I do, maybe even do a channel trailer as well, because I think that would help people understand what they should expect from the channel, instead of just doing like a long-winded update video that I used to always do. And I think that would help things a bit better for me. And essentially help the audience as well to have a better understanding of what they should expect as well. But anyway, you know, that mix between different content does keep me motivated. It keeps things fresh. And maybe that's what growth really is. It's learning to enjoy the process and not just the results. Learning that you don't need to fit into one box, that you can essentially build your own lane instead. And even as I'm creating more, I keep coming back to this one thought that sometimes I wonder if creativity and loneliness are connected. Like, maybe the reason that we as people, the creative ones, the ones that do create, like, maybe the reason that we create is because there's a gap between us and the world. Something that words alone can't bridge, so we fill it with art. Maybe that's why so many of us spend hours behind the screens, sharing our own little universes. And at that point, it's not just about expression, it's about connection. And that's something I've learned throughout all of this, through videos, projects, and now this podcast. Connection doesn't always come from the loudest voices. Sometimes it's the quiet ones, the late night ones, the ones who speak softly, but honestly. Because honesty travels far. It lingers. But that's not the only thing that lingers. Misinformation lingers as well. And trying to navigate through all of the maligning, the slander, misinformation, and getting to the nitty and gritty of what is actually the truth, what actually is honest, is what's going to be on my channel for the foreseeable future. Because nothing is more better than honesty. Because honesty travels far. It lingers. And in a way, it's kind of beautiful, isn't it? How something as simple as sound, a vibration in the air, can carry meaning, emotion, comfort. And somewhere out there, someone who might be hearing this in a totally different country, miles away, in a totally different time zone, could be listening to this podcast right now and still feel like that we're in the same exact room having a conversation together. And in my opinion, that's magic. Not the traditional sense of algorithmic magic, but human magic. But the internet, man, does it overcomplicate that? It blurs the line between genuine connection and performance. You start to basically question your motives. Am I posting this because I care or because I want to be seen as caring? Am I speaking from the heart, or am I just playing the role of someone who seems authentic? Those are heavy-hitting questions, and they even haunted me for a while, because it's easy to lose yourself in this digital reflection. You start chasing metrics instead of meaning, and before you know it, the thing you loved starts to feel like work, even if it's supposed to be a passion. And that's why I needed to basically strip everything back and come here, to this format, this simplicity, just a microphone, a thought, and silence around it. That's all you really need to find yourself again. And I guess that's what I want to talk about next, the act of finding yourself again after losing direction, because it's something I think everyone goes through, whether they admit it or not. And when you spend years trying to define who you are offline or online, you start layering identities: creator, artist, friend, collaborator, commentator, or maybe even public figure, though I never really liked that term. You wear all these hats, switching them out depending on who's watching. But beneath all of them, there's still you. The version of yourself that exists even when no one's looking. And that's precisely the version that I'm talking to right now. The raw, unfiltered, off-camera version. The one that doesn't need to perform. And there's freedom in that. There's a lot of freedom in that, in remembering who you are when there's no audience. Because at the end of the day, that's where creativity comes from silence, from solitude, from stillness. But you're probably wondering, but silence can get uncomfortable, right? Especially if you've grown used to the noise. I think that's one of the most hardest parts about stepping back from online chaos. The quiet feels, it just feels wrong at first, like you've disappeared. But slowly and surely, the silence starts to sound like peace. You realize that disappearing from the noise doesn't mean disappearing from life. And that's something that I had to relearn, that being quiet doesn't mean that you're weak. Being quiet isn't a weakness, it's strength. And the reason why is because anyone can shout, but not everyone can listen. You know, sometimes I think about how much has changed since I started creating. When I first opened up my editing software all those years ago, I didn't have a clue what I was doing. I was just experimenting, cutting clips, adding vaporwave colors, blending humor with commentary. It was messy, but it was me. And I do admit that my old videos were very cringy. But hey, it's a learning curve. And honestly, that's what I miss. The messy part, the imperfection that made it fun. And that element of imperfection is essentially what makes us human. As well as the need of wanting to express yourself is also another indication of being human. But now everything online obviously feels so polished and so calculated. People rehearse authenticity like it's a performance, but real creativity, that is spontaneous. It's messy, uncertain, even awkward sometimes, but that's what gives it life. So maybe this podcast is my rebellion against perfection, my way of saying, hey, it's okay to ramble. It's okay not to have a plan, because that's how real thoughts sound, unpolished, alive, evolving. And that makes me, that reminds me of something that I once read. Art isn't about making something perfect. It's about making something honest. And I'll repeat that again. Art isn't about making something perfect. It's about making something honest. And that line stuck with me because honesty lasts longer than perfection ever will. Perfection fades the moment the next trend appears. But honesty, it echoes. And I want this to echo. So even if this podcast never becomes big, that's okay. I just want it to mean something to whoever listens to it. I want you to walk away, whoever you are, feeling like you've just had a genuine conversation, not a performance, not a lecture, but a moment of realness in a world full of static. Oh, and speaking of static, I like that word. It reminds me of those old televisions, the white noise that fills the screen when the signal fades. There's something oddly comforting about it because, well, maybe because the static means that something is still there. A presence, a hum, a trace of connection trying to break through. And that's what I feel like sometimes, like static, trying to make sense of all of the noise and trying to tune into a much clearer frequency. And I think a lot of creators online feel that way, trying to find the right frequency between self-expression and survival, because creating in this era, this time period that is 2025, it just isn't just about art anymore. It's about algorithms, analytics, branding. It's exhausting. But it doesn't have to be. You can choose to create for yourself again, and you can reclaim the art for the sake of art. And maybe that's the heart of this episode. Reclamation. Taking back the joy that got buried under pressure. You know, there's something about healing, about starting again, especially after setbacks. And it reminds you that endings don't define you, beginnings do. Every time you start again, you're saying, I still believe in this. I still believe in me. And yeah, maybe I myself have had moments where that belief faded when criticism, misunderstandings, or just plain burnout made me question everything. But every time I step back, every time I breathe, I find that little spark again. The spark is quiet, but it's still there. And that's what keeps me going. Not the views, not the validation, but that quiet spark. The feeling that there's still something left to say. Something worth sharing. Because when you're really passionate about something, it doesn't really go away. It might even dim for a while, just like a candlelight, but it never disappears. I think that's why I'm drawn to vaporwave aesthetics. It's this constant dance between the past and the present, as I mentioned before, between the fading and persisting. It's the art of remembering without being trapped in the nostalgia. It's like saying, yeah, time moves on, but beauty doesn't vanish. It just changes shape with time. And maybe that's how I see myself too. Not gone, not forgotten, just changing shape. So as I sit here recording this, I'm not chasing perfection. I'm chasing presence. The ability to be here in this moment fully, because honestly, I think presence is the rarest thing that we have left. Everyone's everywhere all the time, scrolling, refreshing, reacting, but presence, that's a lost art. Maybe VaporCast can help us find it again. Maybe this can be our reminder to just stop for a bit, to listen, to think, to breathe. I want to talk about something that's been on my mind for a very long time. Being misunderstood. Not just the small, everyday misunderstandings that happen in conversation, but the kind that follows you online, that sticks to your name, your work, your reputation. It's strange how easily things can be twisted. One comment taken out of context, one joke misread, one moment of frustration captured and replayed endlessly. Suddenly, your entire identity feels up for debate. You start noticing people aren't responding to you, the person, but to this version of you that only exists only in their heads. I've been there more times than I can count. Videos that were meant to be humorous or self-reflective, analyzed as if they were attacks or statements of character. Content made in a moment of curiosity or experimentation, dissected like it was some sort of public declaration. And it hurts, not because people are cruel, though some are, but because being misunderstood is honestly exhausting. It forces you to defend yourself constantly, to clarify and re-clarify, and still sometimes people don't listen. There's a real cost to that. It's not just emotional on its own, it's mental. It makes you hesitant. It makes you overthink everything that you put out. Every idea is filtered through the fear of misinterpretation or misrepresentation, and even then that fear can grow into self-censorship, which is also the silent killer of creativity. At the same time, it's taught me a few lessons, harsh lessons, but valuable ones nonetheless. Firstly, you can't control how other people perceive you, no matter how clear you are, no matter how much context you provide. Some people will see only what they want to see, and that's their lens only, not your truth. And secondly, silence, as I stated before, is a very powerful tool. Silence is powerful. Responding to every misjudgment, every misreading, every rumor feels like the obvious thing to do. But it's exhausting, and more often than not, it adds fuel to the fire. Choosing when to speak and when to let action speak instead is probably one of the most liberating things I've learned over the years. I think a lot of creators do feel this tension. You want to be understood. You want your audience to see the real you, but the reality is some won't, unfortunately. But hey, that's okay. It's painful, yes, but it also frees you. It allows you to focus on the people who do see you for you. And the ones who get it are the ones who see you for who you are. And the ones who connect with your work on a deeper level, the ones who resonate with you, the ones who listen not just to hear what you have to say, but to hear what you actually mean. And sometimes being misunderstood is a mirror. It shows where you're unclear, where your message might not match your intention, and sometimes it just shows that other people weren't ready to understand. Either way, it's not a measure of your worth. I've had many moments where I personally wanted to fight back against every false narrative that was put against me. I wanted to explain, argue, defend, correct, but every time I did that, or even attempted to do that in some way, it left me drained. And eventually I realized no one else's understanding can define my path. My story isn't theirs to control. And besides, it's a false narrative that they have created. They are the instigators. They are the ones causing the drama. They are the ones spreading the lies and the deceit. They are the ones who think they're in control, but in reality, they are not in control. All they have is their words. And although they say that the pen is truly mightier than the sword, it only really goes so far when their story falls flat. But you know, what really matters is the work itself and the impact that it has on the people who engage with it. Honestly, how they engage with it honestly. Like, for example, if a video, a piece of music, or a internet meme, or an animation, or even a podcast episode like this, if that resonates with someone, then that's the connection worth cultivating. And that's the truth that I can hold on to. Another thing that I've learned is that being misunderstood can teach patience. Patience with yourself and with others. It reminds you that communication is tricky, that context is fragile, and that empathy is rare, but invaluable. Not everyone will meet you halfway, but the ones who do, they're gold. They're the reason creating is worthwhile. And there's also a strange comfort in realizing that misunderstandings are inevitable. They're part of being human. They're part of creating in a space where so many eyes are watching, judging, and interpreting. Accepting that fact doesn't make the experience less frustrating, but it does make it less paralyzing. You can move forward anyway. You can keep creating, keep expressing, and keep connecting with the people who get it. You know, it's tempting to think that clarity is everything, that if you just explain enough, someone will somehow understand. But clarity in this world, in this time period, clarity is never guaranteed. Understanding is optional. And the sooner you accept that, the sooner you can reclaim your energy and focus. And for me, this podcast isn't just about focus and keeping your peace and energy and things like that. For me, this podcast is also part of that reclamation. It's a space where I can speak freely, where context isn't in any type of feed that is lost in a comment section. Like, I can speak freely and context won't ever be lost in some kind of forgotten internet forum or comment section, where nuance isn't edited out, where pauses and some minor hesitation are allowed, where tone and intent are heard in full, and obviously it's my chance to be understood on my terms, even if only by a few people listening right now. And I've realized that's enough. It doesn't have to be massive. It doesn't have to reach millions. It doesn't even have to convert everyone into being a believer. The simple act of sharing, of speaking honestly, is meaningful in itself. Like, being misunderstood can also be a lesson in humility. It reminds you that people will not always see the world the same way as you do. People will always see the world differently, and that you're not the center of everyone's perspective. And that's not necessarily bad. It's an opportunity to refine your empathy, to consider others' interpretations, and to recognize that misunderstanding isn't always an attack. Sometimes it's simply a reflection of difference. But even when misunderstandings feel personal, even when they sting, they don't have to stop you. They don't have to silence your voice, because your voice matters, even if a fraction of the audience truly hears it. And sometimes that fraction is enough to make all the effort worthwhile. I think about the creators who've been misjudged throughout history, people who were laughed at, criticized, misunderstood, even rejected, and then went on to leave something lasting behind. The common thread isn't perfection, it's persistence, and it's continuing despite the noise, continuing despite the misinterpretation or even being misrepresented. And it's also continuing because the work itself has value beyond approval. And that's the mindset that I'm trying to embrace. Not perfection, not universal understanding, not even viral attention, just persistence, presence, and authenticity. And those are the things that I can control. And those are the things that define me more than anyone else's perception ever could. And you know, there's freedom in that as well, real freedom. To create without being paralyzed by fear, to share without needing every listener to get it exactly right, to express without worrying that someone might twist your words. being misunderstood is part of the creative journey. It's painful, sure, but it's also a reminder of why honesty matters, why nuance matters, why connection matters more than approval. So, I'll keep making my animations, my shorts, my unboxing videos, my commentary, my podcast, and very soon my music as well, because those are pieces of me, imperfect, evolving, sometimes messy, sometimes cringe, sometimes misunderstood. And you know what? That's okay. That's human, and that's life. Because the truth is, the cost of being misunderstood is high. It's already high to begin with. And it can make you doubt yourself. It can make you defensive. And it can make you retreat out of fear. But if you face it consciously, if you acknowledge it and keep moving, it can also make you resilient in some way. It can sharpen your perspective, and it can also remind you why authenticity is worth it. So here I am, speaking into this microphone, aware that someone, somewhere, might misinterpret me or misrepresent me. Some might judge what I've said in this podcast, and some might not even get it at all. And you know what? That's fine. What matters is that I keep talking, I keep creating, and I keep connecting with those who do understand. And those are the voices that count. Those are the people I want to reach. And being misunderstood doesn't mean being invisible. It doesn't mean your work isn't valid. It means that your audience is choosing, either consciously or unconsciously, how to interpret you. And you can still be your true self. You can still be true to yourself in that process, in your content. And I think that's the message that I want this part of the podcast to carry. To anyone watching who may be fearful, anyone who's afraid of putting themselves out there online when it comes to content creation, anyone who may be scared, I say this: don't let the fear of misunderstanding stop you from making what matters. Don't let the noise of misinterpretation or misrepresentation drown out your voice. Keep creating, keep speaking, keep being honest. And the right people, the ones who matter, will hear you. Because at the end of the day, being misunderstood is wonderful, but being authentic, that's essential. And no one can take that away from you. And as we start to wind down this very first episode of VaporCast, I want to take this moment to reflect on what it all means, why I started this, and what I hope it becomes, and how it connects to everything that I've been talking about so far. Creating online, especially over the past few years, has been a roller coaster, I will admit that. And there were moments of excitement, moments of doubt, moments of burnout. I've been misinterpreted, overlooked, misunderstood, celebrated, criticized, misrepresented, all in the same day sometimes. And yet, through all of that, I've learned something important. The value in itself isn't in the applause. It's not in the numbers or the recognition. The value in itself is in the act of creating itself, in showing up for yourself, and in those moments of real connection that slip through the noise. That's the real value. And that's what I want this podcast to be. A place where presence matters more than performance, where slowing down, reflecting, and simply sharing thoughts has more weight than chasing trends or viral attention. It's about reclaiming that joy in creation and finding freedom in making something purely because you love it. Oh, and speaking of creation, I want to share a bit of a path that I'm walking on right now, because at the time of recording this episode, I did say earlier that I reached 420-something subscribers on my main channel, and I know it's not a massive number, but to me, it's a milestone. For me, it's a milestone for me, and it's a sign that my work, my videos, my content is reaching people. Initially, I had a plan, and that plan was I thought I'd start this podcast once I hit a minimum of, say, 500 subscribers or even 1,000. But I realized to myself, why wait? I realized that life doesn't wait for you. Time is precious, and you only live once. And the journey is happening right now, so why wait? The growth is already underway, and this felt like, to me, at least, the right moment, the right time to make a start. And obviously, I've already talked about how my content spans a lot of areas, and obviously that's intentional. I've mentioned before how I make those YouTube shorts, the AI-generated memes of my character dancing alongside with Ken Tamplin from Ken Tamplin Vocal Academy, which are obviously fun little experiments that let me play with humor and imagination. And I also do those unboxing review videos, whether it's action figures, Lego sets, or anything that sparks my interest. I still make animations and animation commentary videos. I'm planning to make a 12-song album in the future, and I'm planning to explore more movie reviews. I've never done a movie review, but I have done a movie trailer analysis. I did one of the 28 Years Later trailer, and obviously I've already analyzed the trailer for that film, and now I want to do a deeper dive into the full experience once I'm ready. Once I get my organization issues sorted. Now, the goal isn't just variety for the sake of it. It's about staying curious and engaged with the things that inspire me. It's about making content that feels genuine, that lets me share my perspective without losing myself to trends or pressure. And that's what I hope to continue with this podcast, VaporCast. Occasional deep dives, reflections on creativity, maybe even interviews in the future, discussions about art, internet culture, or anything that sparks thought. And sometimes, when I think about all of this, the videos, the projects, the podcast, I wonder how much of this creativity is tied to loneliness. Like I said before, there's this gap between us and the world, a space words alone can't always fill, and in that gap, we create, we build small universes, we experiment, and reach out in ways that are meaningful even if unseen. And connection doesn't always have to come from the loudest voices. Often, it comes from the quiet ones, from patience, honesty, and the willingness to show up consistently. And that's what I want VaporCast to be, a quiet presence, a place where I can explore, reflect, and share freely. And maybe somewhere out there, I could resonate with anyone who may be feeling the same. This podcast is also about reclamation, reclaiming my own creative joy after burnout, reclaiming the energy that often gets lost in metrics within the algorithm, misunderstanding or comparison. It's also about showing up for yourself first, trusting that meaningful connections will follow. And I guess that's what I want the future of this podcast to feel like. Something that's consistent, something that's authentic, and being in the now, being in the present, and having that freedom of expression. And I guess that's what I want the future of it to look like. Now, I don't plan to rush it. I don't plan to force content or stick to any rigid set schedules. What I want from this is honesty, creativity, reflection, and presence. And obviously, I will talk about the things that matter to me and share thoughts on the internet. A few examples will be culture, art, life, and hopefully that will leave listeners with a sense of perspective, calm, or inspiration. And looking forward, I see a balance between entertainment and reflection. And those shorts that I'm doing, those AI memes, the unboxing videos, the animations, those are the playful side. And the podcast that I'm doing is a contrast of that, like a much more serious, reflective side. And together, they create a space where I can experiment freely, learn from mistakes, and grow without the fear of judgment or understanding. And that's the kind of creative freedom that I've been chasing. And I want it to stay sustainable. And just like I said earlier, I think one of the most hardest lessons I've learned as a content creator is that you just can't control perception. You can't make everyone understand. You definitely can't make everyone like what you do or even like you as a person. But you can control your effort, your honesty, your presence, and that's enough. That's everything. And that's the mindset that I want to carry into every episode of this podcast, every video that I make, and every project that I start. So, as we close this very first episode of VaporCast, I guess I want to leave you with this thought. The thought that growth doesn't have to wait for the perfect timing. Creativity doesn't have to wait for approval. An idea, a connection, doesn't even have to wait for an audience. You start where you are, with what you have, and you keep moving forward. You keep creating, you keep showing up, and that's what makes the journey meaningful. And I just want to say to all of you listening, thank you for being here for this beginning. Thank you for listening, whether this is your first episode or if you've been following me for a while. And this is probably like the first ever podcast that you've listened to. I appreciate it. I hope that this space becomes a place where you can pause, reflect, and maybe even feel a little less alone in your own creative journey. I can't promise what the next episode will bring, but I can promise you this. I'll speak honestly. I'll share freely. I'll keep exploring, and I'll keep building this space for everyone who wants to be present with me in it. So, here's to beginnings. Here's to presence. Here's to the quiet rebellion of creating freely and being authentic. Here's to VaporCast.